Ashton Jeanty will outscore Jahmyr Gibbs this year. That and more bold predictions next.
You are Locked On Dynasty Football, part of the Locked On Podcast Network. Your team every day.
Welcome back to the Locked On Dynasty Football Podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. We'd like to thank you for making us your first listen of the day. Today's episode is brought to you by FanDuel. Right now, new customers can get $200 in bonus bets when your first $5 bet wins. Welcome back. I am your host, Marcus Mosher. You can follow me on Twitter at Marcus_Mosher. Joining me today, as always, is Michael Fabiano. You can follow him on Twitter at Michael_Fabiano. You can also check out all of his great work over on SI. And on today's show, we're doing some bold predictions for the 2025 season that might actually not be as bold as you think. And Fabs, I'm going to give you the floor because these are your three bold predictions. Where do you want to start?
And I've got a full list of 10 over at Sports Illustrated, but you have to think outside the box in fantasy football. Like last year, if you and I were on a podcast at this time of the year, and I told you, you know what, Marcus, I think Baker Mayfield's going to be the fourth best quarterback in fantasy football. He's going to have 40 touchdowns. Yeah. I said, Marcus, Rico Dowdle, believe it or not, he's going to score more points than Kenneth Walker. Or if I told you that Brian Thomas Jr. as a rookie was going to be better than CeeDee Lamb, you would have literally asked me what I was drinking, if you could have some, and then you would have sent those people in the white coats to, fit me for a straitjacket.
Yes.
And guess what? I would have been right on every single freaking one. Like, just weird stuff happens all the time. And rather than give people, people are going to say, well, Cooper Kupp is going to be a fantasy bust this year. No, he's not, because no one expects him to do anything. No. You got to have a little, bold when you're doing some of these predictions, and some of these things may come off as Fabs, you have been drinking, in fact, but just bear with me because there's facts and data to will back all three of these bold predictions.
All right, so let's skip to the first one. Ashton Jeanty, the rookie running back for the Raiders, will outscore Jahmyr Gibbs, who scored 20 touchdowns for the Lions last year.
And that is where I think the regression is going to come. He was amazing. Like, he was the RB1 last season from a full point perspective. We're not talking about points per game. He's one of only 25 running backs in the Super Bowl era to score that many touchdowns in a single season. Now, that's way too big of a sample size, so I'm not going to go there. But we'll go back 15 years. Yeah, you like history. I like history. So we're going to go back to 2010, and we're going to talk about the running backs who have hit 20 touchdowns. All right. Now, when you look at the list, none of the running backs scored more than 18 touchdowns the following year, and that's on the high end. And just two, Todd Gurley and Austin Eckler, scored more than nine the next year. Now, remember, a lot of this is 16-game schedules, and I'm not saying that Gibbs is going to score 9 touchdowns, but that's a pretty crazy trend. In fact, Eckler is the only running back who actually had more fantasy points the year after having 20 touchdowns. And the other 7 running backs with the decline in terms of their fantasy points, the smallest decline, you ready for this, was LaShawn McCoy, 129 points. That's the smallest decline out of the running backs who had 20 touchdowns. And then the following year saw their numbers go really down the drain. Christian McCaffrey got hurt. David Johnson got hurt. So, I mean, you can't really factor those guys in, or maybe you could. Jonathan Taylor missed a few games after he had his 20 touchdown season. So with that being said, I'm expecting regression from Jahmyr Gibbs. Ashton Jeanty is going to be the featured back for the Las Vegas Raiders. You don't take a guy that high, especially a running back, and not utilize him right out of the gate, no matter what Pete Carroll might say. When we saw Marshawn Lynch in Seattle under Carroll, he averaged 20 touches a game. He averaged 12 total touchdowns per year. He averaged nearly 17 fantasy points per game. And this is a guy who only averaged 27 catches a game. And we're talking about from 2011 to 2015, which is when he was in Seattle and healthy under Carroll. And I think Jeanty's going to be better than that right out of the gate. The Raiders have improved offensively, Marcus, but it's not like they brought in Jerry Rice and Tim Brown and Todd Christensen. I mean, you get my point. he is still the number one player in that offense, or maybe at least, 1A behind Brock Bowers. And so I would not be surprised if the rookie was better than Jahmyr Gibbs in year one.
I also just really trust Chip Kelly to design an offense that's going to utilize their top running back. We saw Chip Kelly his first year with Philadelphia. LaShawn McCoy led the NFL in rushing attempts, 314, rushing yards, 1,600, touches, 366, and yards from scrimmage, 2,100. Like, he knows how to design a run game. He's done it wherever he's gone: Oregon, Philadelphia, San Francisco, and then obviously what he did with Ohio State last year. That team just ran the ball to a national championship. So I do think in Las Vegas, with weapons, a more stable quarterback in Geno Smith, a coach that wants to run the ball in Pete Carroll, that this is going to be a pretty efficient run game. My only concern is most of the running backs that we look at here, like from a dynasty perspective, are on really good offenses. For example, Bijan Robinson, we expect that to be the Falcons to have one of the highest scoring offenses. Jahmyr Gibbs, obviously the Lions. Saquon Barkley with the Philadelphia Eagles. Like, a lot of these elite running backs are on elite offenses. Do we think the Raiders get there this year? I don't think they have to, but can they even be average? Because they haven't been over the last couple of years. How quickly can Chip Kelly and Pete Carroll get this offense to being average? We'll see, but I think that's going to determine if Jeanty can outscore Gibbs.
Also, too, remember that David Montgomery missed time last year, and so
did.
Gibbs was there. There were a handful of games last year where Gibbs was the dude. And
not only that, but so Montgomery missed time. Frank Ragnow, their center, retired. They lost Ben Johnson, the offensive coordinator. There's just a lot of change in Detroit, and we think Gibbs is an unbelievable player. We think he could have another fantastic season. It's just going to be really hard to replicate that many touchdowns and be that efficient every time you touch the ball.
Yeah, no question about that. And once again, history, you got to learn from it sometimes. And some people maybe think, well, what does Todd Gurley have to do with Jahmyr Gibbs? It's just historical data. And when you go back and look at how many running backs saw a significant touchdown and or fantasy points decline the following year after scoring 20 touchdowns, it's a little bit eye-opening.
So real quick, before we move on, if you end up being wrong about this, how would that happen? Like, I'm asking you to do the other side of this. Like, if Gibbs outscores Jeanty, and it's not because Jeanty got hurt, like, what must have happened to Jahmyr Gibbs to post another one of those type of fantasy seasons?
See, I just don't think that he can, but if he does, unfortunately, that would probably mean that David Montgomery misses some time.
Yeah.
Because David Montgomery he's the hammer in that offense. He's a very good running back. And Jahmyr Gibbs has come into the league with two benefits. Well, I mean, more than one, but at least two. You've got another running back who's just in the prime of his career. Dave Montgomery, you could say that maybe he's entering like the back end of the prime of his career, which means that Jahmyr Gibbs does not have to handle the full workload, which keeps him fresh. And then also, he's in an explosive offense and you mentioned Ragnow not being a part of that offensive line anymore because he's retired. The offensive line has also been one of the best in the league. And so when you put those three things together, and Gibbs has been durable as well, I mean, those kind of things would certainly point to Gibbs outscoring Ashton Jeanty from a Gibbs perspective. From a Jeanty perspective, I really think that the Raiders would absolutely have to just fumble his rookie year for him to not produce really strong totals. One of the best running back prospects to come out of college in a while. Running backs don't get drafted typically in the top 10 anymore. The position has been devalued. The Raiders bring in Geno Smith. Listen, I get it. He's not great, but he's a good quarterback.
He's fine. Yeah, he's more than fine.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, he's not going to light the world on fire, but he's also not going to make a ton of mistakes, like he had done earlier in his career. That offense should be better. Jacoby Myers, obviously. Brock Bowers is going to be the leading pass catcher.
It's just that division is so good.
He's in there too. So
the defenses are so good in that division. Like, do the Chiefs have the worst defense of the three teams? That's my biggest concern for the Raiders. I think they could be way better, but still be in a lot of these games where they're going to have, be behind, or they're grinding to try to win 21-20.
How do they avoid that?
Probably trying to run the ball. Yep. Going back to
Time of possession.
Yes. So I think you're right. I wouldn't be surprised if the Raiders just try to take the air out of the football and it's Ashton Jeanty, 300 touches. Because Pete Carroll isn't about rebuilding. He wants to win right now. And I'm sure he sees that as the best path to victory. We'll see. All right, let's talk about Lamar Jackson, who could be in for a major regression in 2025. We'll tell you why next. This episode is brought to you by FanDuel. The NBA playoffs are in full swing, and every night delivers highlight-worthy performances, major momentum shifts, and can't-miss moments. Whether it's a game-winning shot or a breakout player, there has never been a better time to get in on the action. And FanDuel makes it easy to stay in the game before tip-off and live with player props, performance trends, and same-game parlays. Fans have more ways than ever to play smart and win big. Plus, we've got the NFL season coming up. You can start looking at some of the futures lines, the win totals, the projected stats. All of it is available on FanDuel, and you guys know how much I love the futures market. So if you're new to FanDuel, it's the perfect time to sign up with basketball going on right in the middle of baseball season. We've got the NFL just around the corner. Head to FanDuel.com and place your first $5 bet, and if it wins, you'll get $200 in bonus bets. And make every moment more with FanDuel, the official sports betting partner of the NBA. Welcome back to the Locked On Dynasty Football Podcast. We'd like to thank you for making us your first listen of the day. All right, Fabs, this is the one that you and I might disagree on the most. You are anticipating a regression season for Lamar Jackson. Why is that the case?
Well, because what he did last season is not something that's easily duplicated. He scored more fantasy points than any quarterback in the history of the National Football League last year. Again, 17 games, that's going to help. His points per game average was phenomenal. But I can see him scoring about 100 fewer points this season. I mean, that's a lot, right? Regression is, to me, it's imminent. It's just a matter of how much regression he has. So when you look at his 2023 season, he averaged 20.7 points per game, or 5 fewer points than he did last year. And I think that's reasonable. That's reasonable. To expect a guy to come in and average nearly 26 points per game for 2 straight seasons, it just doesn't happen very often, right? Josh Allen's the only guy out of the very small list of quarterbacks who've scored 400 points in a fantasy season, in a single season, to come back and have a season that was close to that previous campaign. Every quarterback saw a drop in their stats the following year, every single one. Allen is the lone player who didn't experience at least an 83-point drop the following year. And that was actually Jackson, who dropped those 83 points in 2020. You also have to keep in mind that when you're drafting Lamar Jackson, and right now, I mean, he's the QB2 in startup. He's ahead of everybody except for Josh Allen, and he should be, because he's been phenomenal. But I do think you have to bake in regression. But even if he scores, Marcus, 100 fewer points, he's still going to be a top 5 fantasy quarterback in 2025. I'm not telling you he's going to fall off a cliff, but what he did last season was something that's never happened before. And I don't think that the same player is going to be able to duplicate that level of success in back-to-back years.
I understand the argument. And we should also mention there, with his style of play, he's just more likely to get banged up than some other quarterbacks, right? There's going to be a part of his, or a time in his career where he starts to miss games because he's not going to be quite as quick and able to get away from big hits. So that's coming, but we're not really talking about that. We're talking about on the field, assuming he plays a majority of the season. The only thing that I would push back on, Fabs, is that when he's had Todd Monken, his offensive coordinator over the last 2 years, I mean, he's been unbelievable. He wasn't quite as efficient as a passer in 2023, but we saw the touchdowns go way up in 2024. And I just think you look at his per season metrics, 33 passing touchdowns, 6 interceptions. He's rushing for 800 yards in 8 or 9 touchdowns. And I look at this offense this year. You got Zay Flowers going into year 3. You've got Rashad Bateman back, who had a breakout season. Mark Andrews is just healthier than he was at this time last year. You've got Isaiah Likely going into a contract year. And you're starting to hear more buzz about some of the depth receivers on this roster, like Tez Walker, They signed DeAndre Hopkins. Why couldn't this offense be better with more weapons, with Lamar Jackson just getting better as a player? I'm not saying he's going to score more fantasy points, but it just seems like everything is set up for him to have another huge season.
But even if he scores 330 fantasy points, that's really good. It's really good. And it's still a 100-point drop from last year, man. That's a lot of points to score, and to expect to have a duplication of that level of fantasy success is tough. I mean, listen, call me a negative Nancy. You could go ahead and do that. I'm cautious when it comes to.
There's been very few quarterbacks in the league that have thrown for 40 touchdowns. Just generally, like you look, the number of quarterbacks that have thrown for 40 touchdowns is very small.
Very small.
And then you look at the quarterbacks that have run for 900 yards in a season. That list is very small. You combine those two lists together, that doesn't happen. It's like Lamar Jackson, and that's it.
That's what I'm saying. And it's going to be really hard to duplicate. I don't know if it's going to be just simple regression, which we hope that it's just simple regression and not some sort of injury that keeps him out of games, because Lamar Jackson is a fabulous player, and you love watching him every single week. It's still just crazy to me that he fell to where he fell when he came out of Louisville. And the big thing was, well, maybe he's better as a running back. I mean, this guy doesn't turn the ball over. I mean, he's fantastic. So talk about the NFL scouts missing out on one there for sure, at least everybody except for the Ravens. But I think Jackson will be great. It's just really, really hard to go. I mean, the guy scored 430 last season. That's just unheard of.
So really quickly before we move on, in the latest batch of ADP, Josh Allen at QB1, Lamar Jackson at QB2, but Jaden Daniels is right there at QB3. The ADP is Lamar Jackson 34.1, Jaden Daniels 35.6. They're close, and it seems like dynasty managers are siding, or they're starting to kind of side with the younger guy in Jaden Daniels. Would you do that, or would you just still lean on Lamar even if a regression is coming?
I'd still lean on Lamar because regression is still a top 5 fantasy quarterback. And as much as I love Jaden Daniels, don't get me wrong, Jaden Daniels was my favorite breakout quarterback from last year. And if a player makes me look good, I like that player. But I mean, he's got 1 year, bro. 1 year of really high-end production with heightened expectations. Lamar Jackson's got a resume.
He's been doing that for a long time now, right? I mean, for multiple years at Louisville, and how many years now in the NFL? He should have been a 3-time MVP.
We're talking about a guy who's going to the Hall of Fame.
Yep.
And he's still in the prime of his career.
I'm in. All right, let's talk about maybe my favorite player in the NFL outside of Drake London, Rashee Rice. Are you buying into Rashee Rice going into year 3, or are you nervous about Xavier Worthy and all the other weapons in Kansas City? We'll discuss that more next. Welcome back to the Locked On Dynasty Football Podcast. We'd like to thank you for making us your first listen of the day. For your second listen, check out the Locked On NFL Scouting Show. As training camps get closer and moves are being made, hosts Kyle Krabs and Joe Marino will make you the most informed NFL fan this offseason. Find Locked On NFL Scouting on YouTube or wherever you get your podcast. All right, I'm ready to go. Let's talk about Rashee Rice. What kind of year are you anticipating Rice having?
A big one. If what we saw from him last year, and I know it was a small sample size, before he got hurt, he was Patrick Mahomes locked on top target. Hint, hint, wink. That was a bad dad joke, by the way. But we love locked on. Last year, 7.3 targets per game, 16.2 target fantasy points per game before getting hurt. If you threw that over a full 17 games, he would have outscored Malik Neighbors. Like he's looked really good in OTAs. There seems to be no issues with him having any kind of health problems going into training camp. Mahomes had a thing with him last season. You could see it. It was developing. It looked like it was, I mean, I'm not going to say it was going to be Tyreek Hill, but it was going to be good. And then he got hurt. And the health side of things, I think we can kind of say, well, we're good. He's fine. The thing you have to worry about, Marcus, obviously this year and long term is like the off-field kind of stuff. And if that results in any sort of suspension,
this year,
right, you have said that it's not going to be this season. But I mean, this guy is young. He's catching passes from Patrick Mahomes. Travis Kelce, despite losing 25 pounds, I'm sorry, he's at the end. He's at the end of the line here, guys. He's 36 years old. His numbers have declined 3 straight years. So it is not out of the realm of possibility that Rashee Rice is the most targeted member of the Chiefs offense from Patrick Mahomes in 2025 and beyond. And right now, his ADP is at 26. He's the wide receiver 16. I think he could be a top 10 fantasy wide receiver this season. And I get it. Xavier Worthy was very good in the second half of last season and into the playoffs. I get it. I understand. But Rice was Mahomes' dude. He was that guy before he went down. And I just think that rapport, that relationship, that connection is going to continue. It's going to start up right where it left off last year when Rice got hurt. And you're going to see this kid put up very good numbers in 2025.
So if you go beyond that, even go back to his rookie year, like midway through his rookie year, he was a spot player the first half of his year, that season. About midway through the season, he became, like the wide receiver 2, wide receiver 3 there in snaps. He was playing about 35 snaps a game. From that point on, Fabs, he was averaging 7 catches and 82 receiving yards per game. And that includes 4 postseason games, 3 of those which came against top 5 defenses. Like, he was already trending in this direction where he just stay healthy. You're looking at a 1,400-yard receiver with double-digit touchdowns and 120 plus catches. That was as a rookie and 3 games into year 2. And we saw it even in that first game. Remember the game against Baltimore to open up the season? He had a huge game, and Baltimore could not cover him. He had a big game the following week. Everything, to me, this seems like the perfect Patrick Mahomes receiver. Juju Smith-Schuster had to try to fill in that role a little bit. He's just not the same player. And actually, Rice reminds me of a young Juju when Juju was with Pittsburgh, like in 2017, where it's this big, powerful slot receiver who has some quickness and can make plays after the catch. I just think he's a perfect fit in Kansas City's offense. And I'm with you. I'm all the way in.
Yeah, and I get it. There's depth there this year. Hollywood Brown is back, but we know he's dealt with injuries for most of the last year plus. Worthy, of course, is going to be there as well. Kelce, they drafted Jalen Warles, but I'm not concerned about that. I think Rashee Rice is the alpha there, and that's not going to change. And so if I can get him at the cost right now, which is wide receiver 16 with an ADP of 26, I will pay the cost happily because I really do think that this is going to be Mahomes' guy for a long, long time. Travis Kelce is not guaranteed to play football past 2025. Okay. That's a lot of targets that are suddenly going to be up for grabs. And they ain't going to be able to bring in another tight end who's on the Kelce level. I think things just get better for Rashee Rice as his career moves forward. Again, assuming there's not significant discipline for the off-field stuff and that he can keep his head out of his rear end and stay straight and not have any more off-field problems.
Well, let's assume that there is significant discipline. Let's say it's 6 games, right? I think that's kind of been what a lot of players who've gotten in trouble have gotten is 6 games, right? It's 6 games. It's less than 2 months. Like we get guys that will get hurt in week 1 with a hamstring and we won't see them till week 9. Like we can deal with that. But what's really hard to find are these guys that are true difference makers when they're on the field. And actually, I would say the guys that get injured and miss time and then come back 6-7 weeks later, they're a bigger risk than the guys that are coming off suspensions because those guys are healthy. Like they're not missing time because of an injury. Usually they're able to pick things right back up. Rashee Rice has the biggest change in ADP over the last month. It seems like dynasty drafters are starting to come around to the idea of he's the number 1 target in this offense. And Travis Kelce and Xavier Worthy are really nice players, but they're more complementary players at this point. It's Rice who's going to be the guy that gets the double-digit targets. He's going to be the guy that's moving the chains, that they're targeting in big situations. I'm all in on Rashee Rice. And in fact, wide receiver 16, you can convince me that he should be going ahead of guys like Garrett Wilson and Jackson Smith and Jigba and Marvin Harrison Jr. Because when those guys are all on the field, I want Rice.
You're not going to get an argument for me, man. I'm with you. I'm all in, and the fact that ADP is rising is probably because people are listening to this podcast on YouTube or wherever you get your podcast. Because Marcus and I are both all in on Rashee Rice in that offense.
All right, that is it for today's show. We want to thank you for making Locked On Dynasty Football your first listen every single day. Go check out the article that Fabs posted on his bold predictions for the 2025 season. It's a fantastic read. A lot of stats, a lot of history. If you like NFL history and fantasy history, it's a fantastic resource. Go check out that on SI. Go follow Fabs on Twitter at Michael_Fabiano. I'm at Marcus_Mosher. Have a great weekend. We'll see you back here on Monday. We're going to be discussing the biggest winners and losers from the newest batch of ADP. Rashee Rice is one of those players, but we'll tell you who is rising and falling in the drafts. Again, we'll see you guys right back here on Monday.